August 19th, we're on the boat. Actually, a water taxi. There's our driver. Taking off 9:45 a.m. to News Island from Tofino, British Columbia. Center where we bought our tickets. 80 Canadian dollars round trip. Oh, not seeing a seaplane there. What a foggy morning. Oh, just sitting in the back outside. It's foggy, but it's actually, temperature is lovely. Not too cold.
Plenty of islands out here in the inlet. Just saw one a moment ago. At the rate of speed we're going, we know Mears Island must be quite a ways off. Probably a 10 or 15 minute run. Here we go, we're passing by another island in the fog right now. I noticed on the island that we just passed before this one that they had a triangle symbol on it. So I imagine that each of these islands has some kind of designation for navigation purposes. We're slowing now. It's either because we're passing through some kind of a narrow strait, or actually much closer to the island than I thought. This guy doesn't waste any time cutting across the water. The return trip's some 6 hours from now, so we're going to be spending quite a bit of time here on the island. There's also a mountain associated with the island called Lone Cone. A lot of people make the ascent. It's very tall, quick rise type mountain. I'm not sure whether it has a developed trail or not. Tree in poor state, probably got salt water at its roots at some point. They're definitely decelerating, and I suspect that we'll be disembarking briefly after only maybe what amounted to about a 4-minute ride. My suspicions were correct. Here we are now, about to dock up. Apparently there's underground water cable and they don't want any anchors used at this point. Looks like some kind of a cab truck there. I'm not sure whether or not that's part of our trip or not, but it certainly is suspiciously parked at about the right time. Just introduced me to Daniel, our water taxi driver. Daniel, you really put the pedal to the metal, didn't you?
And I met his cousin yesterday, Ruby.
Oh, Ruby! Yes, yes. We were over at the lake swimming. Great to meet you, Daniel.
Nice to meet you. Okay, let's go.
Anybody else want to be introduced for our YouTube video?
Our
Our young accompanying personnel. Best laid plans. Apparently because we were so pressed for time, we ended up on a water taxi that leads up to the mountain climb of Lone Cone. It's supposed to be a very steep climb. We're going to take it as far as we can and be back later on. You know Ruby. We met Ruby yesterday at what we call the Granite Lake. It's where it's all rocks on the bottom of the lake and we go swimming. We were on our way here, but we met her there. You want to tell us, Tony, a little bit about the island? I noticed there's electricity here. You have a campground. Do many native peoples, Tony, live here on the island?
Yeah, about like 60 natives.
60 natives?
Yeah.
And how do they get by? Do they hunt? Do they grow food?
We just go to the Tofino.
They go back to Tofino to work. So every morning the water taxi takes folks who work there and then they come back to the island at night to sleep. So sounds great. Is this our launch point for the
Yeah, just start right over here.
Our trail is right there. Okay, so we've got, could you describe the mountain quickly? What's the altitude of the mountain?
It's gonna be 700 meters.
700-meter climb.
It's gonna be pretty steep.
Pretty steep.
And it's gonna be challenging.
And how long does it usually take to do a round trip walk to the peak and back?
3 hours up and 3 hours down.
3 hours up and down. But we're going to be back here for you to pick us up at 12 o'clock right here at this campground. Well, thanks, Tony. We're going to hop out.
Yeah, ready.
So here we are at Lone Cone, and this is the beginning of the trail, but we won't make it to the top. It's about a 3-hour hike. He says it's pretty steep and severe, and too bad it's so foggy because Ruby was saying it's the most amazing sight once you get to the top.
Well, I'm hoping perhaps that we can actually get above the marine layer in this hike. That would be my goal. But we've only got about an hour to hike. I hike back down for an hour because we need to be gone this afternoon.
Yeah, we're going to take the 12 o'clock water taxi, and that's 2 hours.
Okay, let's do it. There's our first marker, Lone Cone Mountain Trail. And there's Vanessa. Here we are to our second marker. This is a obviously second growth area of trees. Apparently, as we discovered, all the old growth trees that were saved by the Mr. Mears, who the island's named after, are on the far side of the island, which I would say, based on the sun position, is the eastern flank of the island.
Since we forgot to bring any food with us, we found huckleberries here.
Well, I did make that mad dash just before we got on the boat, but yeah, huckleberries would certainly be a nice addition to our very limited diet for the morning. As you can see, the trail to the mountain is marked using these pink ribbons. But it's fortunate that it is so because there seems to be a diversity of routes that one might take, and where there's choice, sometimes bad choices are made. But here it is well marked. Crossing a footbridge here, hewn out of fallen log. And pathway, a similarly fallen log. The terrain is quite uneven, which is probably one of the reasons why the climb takes as long as it does. 700 meters is roughly 2,200 feet ascent. And yep, maybe that ascent begins right about here. Here's Vanessa, not too far behind, making this rather irregular ascent, which winded me, by the way.
Well, it's nice that the trees can add as a grab them as a. Oh, something to lift you up.
And we are not beginning to climb because we're going to descend back down again. So I imagine these undulations are going to occur with some frequency. This hike reminds us of one we did back in 2012 before we had the cameras, up Mount Katahdin in Maine. 6,000 foot peak, started about 2,000, climbed 4,000. We got above the tree line, but what reminds me of it is the irregularity of the trail. This is a relatively unimproved trail requiring constant gyrations, which will definitely slow our progress. Vanessa is now making her way up the ascent that just contributed to my labored breathing. What do you see down there?
Beautiful flowers. I think they're lupin. Little tiny purple flowers.
Ah.
You haven't opened yet, though.
This is the first reasonable amount of sunlight we've seen. Clearly the marine layer's burning away, so we shouldn't have too much trouble getting to a point where we can get above it, since it may simply dissolve. Another descent.
So I have my mouth full of these delicious berries here.
Are they huckles?
Oh no, huckles are red. These are, it's either salal berries.
But they're not blueberries, because they're probably not very sweet, are they?
Oh, they're sweet.
They are sweet.
Yeah, because they're ripe.
Oh. Be sure these are salals. Salals, unlike blueberries, have a very thick, leathery skin. And although they're ripe, they're not nearly as sweet. Beginning to suspect that we may not even get to the foot of the mountain in the hour we have available due to the irregularity of the trail and due to the fact that at my best, I don't even begin to see a looming peak here. What you got down there, Vanessa?
Animal tracks.
Ah.
Mud.
Those are pretty large. I think they would probably end up being bear. So my question mentally asked to myself is, are there bear on this island? Yep, this island bears bears. On the subject of bears, there's a lot of do's and don'ts associated with bears. I'm going to quiz Vanessa.
Oh.
What is something you want to do where there's bears around you?
Make noise.
Make noise! What is something you don't want to do when there are bears around you?
Run away.
Well, you don't know that. Let's assume that we haven't encountered a bear yet. What don't you want to do?
Well, I guess I don't know. Act like prey, but
No, that's once you see a bear.
okay.
No, my answer would be try to avoid exposing food to the wind. Bears have tremendously sensitive noses. They've been known to actually smell stomach content from miles away when people belch. So what you want to avoid doing is exposing a lot of especially aromatic food to the wind. We'll talk more about bears in a little bit. I like to do to give bears of advance notice, and I usually don't do this unless I get that prickly sensation on the hairs at the nape of the neck, which I'm not experiencing right now, is a Tarzan call. And should I get to that point in this hike where I feel it's necessary, we'll try to include it in this video. One of the things I'm looking for to hint that we're actually near the base of a mountain is rocks. I want to start seeing boulders, lots of boulders, and exposed rock. Right now we're in a valley. There's plenty of soil. It's very rich. We're seeing lots of roots. It's rare to see an actual stone, although they are present. And when we start seeing more stone, this is my hypothesis now, I'm thinking we will be proximate to the base of the mountain. Vanessa just stepped on one of the roots at an odd angle and left her sitting on the side of the road. But what I love about it, she got a nice backrest to fall against. Look at that. Isn't that serendipitous? Oop, you can see the root on her sweater here. Vanessa just mentioned, oh, we see a stone here. Just mentioned that it is actually projected to be an 1.5-hour hike to the base of the mountain itself. So, folks, don't be disappointed, because you'll get to see the route out towards the mountain, but if you ever want to climb it yourself, all you got to do is be somewhere in North America, somewhere in Canada, somewhere in British Columbia, somewhere on Vancouver Island, somewhere on the Pacific Rim, somewhere called Tofino. And next time, if you do book a passage on the water taxi, we really recommend you say you either want to go to the mountain or you want to go to the trees, the old growth trees. That will be the big lesson that we will have learned from our current adventure. You can see by evidence of this mud that there's quite a bit of precipitation up here on this island. And one of the main reasons we wanted to go to the big trees, the old growth trees, 1,000 and 2,000 years old, the cedars that are on the east side of the mountain, is we wanted to present our hypothesis that global warming is only a small part of the reason why British Columbia is burning. The main reason is when you cut down the old growth trees, temperatures rise, humidity falls, and as a result, you end up drying up all the verdure and the other trees. A lot of trees die because the grandfather trees are the ones that hold the wisdom of the trees. Just like global warming, we all contribute to this. Vanessa and I traveled here in a car, pulling a small trailer. We typically travel 20,000 miles a year, pulling the trailer around during our travel season. And even though we've done the best we can, as opposed to a large RV, we get 25 miles a gallon. RVs typically get 8. We're still contributing to the increase of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Now we know some people believe that man-made or anthropocentric global warming is not the source of the current rise in world temperatures. We'll leave that to another discussion. Meanwhile, most of us live in stick-built homes. Not us in Arizona. Many homes are made out of adobe brick. Anybody who lives in a stick-built home has also contributed to the demise of the great forests and the increase in fires and temperatures. Now we're beginning to see the sun in resplendence, although there's still quite a bit of thin layer fog, marine layer, in the atmosphere above us.
And we're grateful it's not smoke, which is just flooding over all of British Columbia.
Through Alberta province. We heard all the way to Saskatchewan, and even as far as, where's Winnipeg? Manitoba. So the west coast is burning, not only in Canada, but in the lower 48, California. I suspect some fires in Oregon and Washington as well.
And we did see smoke yesterday, even here on the island.
Clearly beginning to overheat. I just doffed another layer of clothing. Vanessa went on ahead, so clambering over roots. I'm continuing to climb. Vanessa also said we only have another 20 minutes of climbing before we have to turn about. We will see what we can see.
Our first view of the mountain through those trees.
Ah, it does look like a cone. I wouldn't call it a volcanic cone. I'd say it's an ice cream cone.
Thus the name Lone Cone.
Lone Cone.
I get it.
You know, they could have given it an alternative name. You know what it would have been? Single Scoop.
Oh, Single Scoop. I love it.
Well, since we first saw the mountain, Lone Cone on Mears Island, we've now begun a gentle ascent. Recalling my hypothesis, at some point we should see as many rocks and boulders as we see stumps. Here's an interesting phenomena. There's a growth on the backside of this tree. The reason I call it the backside is such growths of fungi, etc., tend to occur on the north side of any tree. Since we're about approaching 11 o'clock, that pretty much is true. encouraging myself to walk this kind of narrow log, because we see it frequently, and we have to cross a culvert on a log. So it's best to get lots of experience so that you have confidence when you encounter those inevitable water crossings that use a single log as the footway.
Or a fallen tree, really.
Or a fallen tree, yeah. Sometimes they're not even intentional. One of the things you want to do, of course, with bears is make noise. And especially if it's a joyful noise. So we made up a little bit of a song, since we're on a Native American island.
And our first
Water crossing.
water.
Yeah.
I bet it's fresh enough to drink.
So we want to pay respect. This is not what you would call cultural appropriation. It's just trying to pay respect to this island and its people. Oh, here's even more water flowing. And of course the other inevitable example of a log crossing. And we'll get this on Vanessa on this one.
Look at all the nails.
Oh, she's under pressure now. She's under pressure. She's having to do this. Whoop. Oh, she's making it look suspenseful, folks. We almost caught that. That would make like a 1,000,000-view video of Vanessa falling off a log. We have now entered the tribal park. Stay on the guided trail only. There's our guides. We've already met our first goal, which is somehow to escape the marine layer. Our second goal was to have some kind of view of a mountain. Our third, I have to say, given this ascent, we're clearly at the foot of the mountain itself, known as Lone Cone and affectionately as Single Scoop. We may not have gotten to the old growth trees on the east side of the mountain. Look at this beauty here. Cedar going skyward, up, and away. That last old growth tree was pretty decent. Probably 300 or 400 years old. Look at this one. It's got to have a circumference of 30 feet. Try wrapping your arms around that. Oh. Look at the burl. Wow. Burl on the north side of the tree. Must have started growing there and gave up. Trail still ascending. Okay. 100 meters. Presumably is our current altitude. And the summit's at 730. That means we've probably already hiked 15% of the altitude of Lone Cone. Alrighty then. This is probably going to be the only view we're going to get of the peak. In fact, time has run out. I've got to do an about face, and then we got about an hour hike back, and you'll hear from us once again along the route a little higher. There she is. Stone-faced mountain. Lone Peak. Yes, we know we're supposed to stay pretty close to the trail, and we understand why, but at this point, Vanessa and I both wanted to get a view of the peak, so Vanessa's carefully wending her way up there. One of the reasons they don't want you to get off the trail is, of course, ecologically. You can do some damage. Another reason is, if you get off the trail, you get lost and they have to find you. Third reason is you could get lost and never make your way back. So since I'm here with Vanessa, we can get rid of a couple of those reasons. She's going to have to go stand right next to the base of that maybe 200-year-old cedar. And if she looks up between the two trees like I did with the camera, she'll see the peak to the northern side. Any luck?
Oh yeah, it's got trees on the top.
Yeah, there's two trees flanking the peak. Any impressions?
The creek bed there that's dried up.
Ah. So there's the peak, and there's the lovely Vanessa having her peak at Lone Cone Peak. And now we're going to head back down the mountain. No, at no point did I get the hairs on the back of my neck standing up. So you're just going to have to watch a Johnny Weissmuller movie and see how Tarzan does his call. Vanessa is an inveterate tree hugger.
Magnificent.
She's going to demonstrate both how to appropriately hug a tree
Thank you, thank you, tree.
And-
You got saved.
and the very fact that there's no way you can wrap your arms around that
Oh.
beauty.
And sadly, it's only like 1/3 the size of the trees on the other side.
No kidding, because Vanessa was there 3 years ago and she saw the trees. But at least this one clearly looks old growth, not 2,000 years old though.
Right.
I'm back at the dock. About a 5-minute walk from the trailhead. As you can see, most of the marine layer is burned off. Seeing what looks like a distant sail, or is that a lighthouse? I'll zoom in on it. Yeah, lighthouse in the distance, on a point. It's a nice sweeping vista of the inlet. Vancouver Island has a vast number of these inlets, especially on the Pacific Rim on the west coast. Ooh, it's a nice bird. Gull. There it goes. Okay, here we go. He's made 2 runs. I guess a lot of people like to come over the island around noontime, so he makes 2 runs. 12:15 and 12:15. About to pull in. So Vanessa, I'm reminded of a song and you're reminded of a quote. We came to see the big trees, but we actually ended up climbing the mountain. The song I'm reminded of is, "You can't always get what you want. You can't always get what you want." Come on, join in. But if you try sometime,
You might find
that you get what you need. Oh yeah. Yeah. And you had a quote. What was that quote?
George Bernard Shaw.
What did he say?
In order to be an adept, one has to learn to adapt.
Adapt. Make the best of whatever comes your way in life.
Shaw. Wasn't he like a historian?
Yeah, he was a writer.
Everything's getting set up here. And we'll soon be aboard for our return to Tofino after having climbed for an hour to just see the very peak of Lone Cone.
Hello, Daniel.
But she needs us all to know that for everything else to grow, we
Pushing
have to
off.
free her.
They have reverse on these things. Hey,
Let her
look,
go.
you're going to be in a Golden Phoenix published YouTube video. What's your name?
One of our photo albums. Megan.
Megan. All right, Megan. Anybody else want to introduce themselves?
Yes.
Hold on.
Hi, neighbor. My name is Shia. I'm from Burnaby, BC, originally from Ontario, and I'm glad to be immortalized in this video.
Hey, anybody else? Say hello. Give us your first name. Where are you from?
No?
Everybody else is shy.
They're shy of being courageous. Anyway, it's a great run. Maybe we'll get a look at the mountain as we go away from the island.
at heart. Still, she's our mother. We've got to do our part. Yes, everyone can see that grown-up children we must be. Isn't she lovely? Yes, indeed.